Singapore is renowned as one of the safest countries in the world, a place where laws are strict and crimes rarely go unsolved. But even in this orderly city-state, a handful of dark mysteries remain unresolved, chilling cases that have refused to close for years or even decades. From vanished children and gruesome murders to brazen attacks in broad daylight, here are some of the most notorious unsolved mysteries that still haunt Singapore. The afternoon of the 14th of May 1986 was like any other school day in Singapore. Two primary schoolboys, 12-year-old Kei Chin An and 11-year-old To Hong Huat, left home and set off for school near Owen Road, a quiet residential area in central Singapore. But they never arrived at school, they never came home, and they were never seen again. The only traces left behind were their school bags and textbooks, later found neatly placed under a tree in a nearby playground. What followed was one of the most extensive missing persons investigations in Singapore's history. Authorities, the boys' families, and even concerned strangers from the community joined the search, combing through forests, drains, canals, and apartment blocks. But nothing was found. As the days turned into weeks, theories began to swirl. Did a child trafficking syndicate abduct them? Did someone they knew lure them away? Or did they run off and meet with foul play? But none of these theories ever held up. McDonald Singapore, whose Owen Road outlet the boys often visited, offered a 100,000 Singapore dollars reward for information. That gesture, along with their connection to the fast food chain, led the media and public to call them the McDonald's boys. In 2009, a man in Johor Bahru claimed to have seen someone resembling Chin An. The tip offered a flicker of hope, but it too led nowhere. Despite decades of efforts, no suspects have ever been identified and no remains have ever been found. Almost 40 years later, the case of the McDonald's boys is still unsolved. A tragic story of two young boys who vanished without a trace and never came back. In broad daylight on the 18th of September 1972, 22-year-old Chan Chi Chan, a Malaysian seamstress working in Singapore, was walking with her sister along Commonwealth Avenue in Queenstown when she suddenly screamed and collapsed, blood blooming on her chest. A single .22 caliber bullet had shot her, fired from a distance, in what appeared to be a random sniper attack. Chan was rushed to the hospital but died hours later. The ensuing investigation baffled authorities. Ballistic tests on every legally owned firearm in the vicinity turned up no matches, and witnesses reported only hearing a distant gunshot. Some theorized it was a targeted hit, possibly a jilted suitor aiming for Chan's sister, while others feared a mysterious sniper on the loose. To this day, the Queenstown shooting remains unsolved, and the unknown shooter has never been identified. On the morning of the 6th of January 1979, Singaporeans were horrified by news of an unfathomable crime. Four young siblings from the Tan family, aged 5 to 10, were found brutally slain in their HDB flat in Geylang, Bahru. Their bodies were discovered stacked upon each other in the bathroom, each child still in their pajamas and bearing at least 20 deep slash wounds. The children's parents, who had left early for work, returned to a nightmarish scene that sent shockwaves through the country. The murders were shockingly brutal. The killer had used a chopper or dagger, and it seemed like the whole thing had been carefully planned. But what happened next made the case even more disturbing. About 2 weeks later, during Lunar New Year, the children's grieving parents received a festive card in the mail. It said, "Now you can have no more offspring, ha ha ha," and was signed in Chinese as the murderer. Even more chilling, the card used personal nicknames for the parents, suggesting the killer knew the family. Police questioned over 100 people. They looked into everything from personal grudges to mental illness, but no one was ever arrested. Decades have passed, but the Geylang Bahru family murders remain unsolved. It's still considered one of the darkest crimes in Singapore's history. On the 20th of August, 1978, 5 young women, 4 Malaysians and 1 Singaporean, all working as social escorts, agreed to accompany a wealthy businessman called Mr. Wong and his 2 associates for a night party on a boat. The men, who claimed to be from Hong Kong and Japan, wined and dined the escorts for days leading up to the outing, earning their trust. That evening, the women boarded a small launch at Jardine Steps and were ferried to a larger cargo ship for the promised party at sea. It was the last time anyone ever saw Diana Ng, Yang Yok Fun, Yap Mi Leng, Sito Tai Thim, and Margaret Ong. When they failed to return, an investigation found that Wong and his companions had used false identities and the cargo ship had already sailed. A week later, a grim clue washed ashore. A severed female hand was found near Keppel shipyard, with manicured nails and signs of torture. Forensic analysis suggested it belonged to a young woman, possibly one of the missing 5, but even this clue led nowhere concrete. Rumors swirled of a human trafficking syndicate at work. One witness claimed to have spotted a missing escort in Pyongyang years later. Despite international investigations and Interpol involvement, the case went cold. The 5 women have never been found. In December 1984, Ayakanu Marathamuthu, a 34-year-old caretaker at a public chalet, vanished abruptly from his home near Orchard Road. His wife reported that he had gone gambling in Malaysia and never returned. But as weeks passed, disturbing suspicions grew that something far more sinister had happened right in his own household. 2 years later, after tip-off, police arrested Ayakanu's wife, Nagaratha, and several of her relatives on suspicion of murder. Investigators believed Ayakanu had been killed during a family dispute. Allegedly, he was abusive and the in-laws had decided they'd had enough. Then came the macabre twist that horrified the nation. Rumors spread that the killers chopped up his body and cooked it into curry to dispose of it. This ghastly allegation, never officially confirmed by police, gave the case its infamous name, the Curry Murder. During the high-profile trial, prosecutors struggled without a body or murder weapon. In the end, the judge had no choice but to release all 6 suspects on a discharge not amounting to an acquittal, citing a lack of evidence. The accused walked free and the case stalled. Decades on, Ayakanu's remains have never been found and no one has been definitively held accountable. In the early 1990s, Mona Ko reigned as a queen of the club scene, a top hostess manager, or also known as Mamasan, who ran a popular night spot and commanded the envy and respect of many. But on the evening of the 15th of October 1994, as 46-year-old Mona waited for the elevator in the lobby of the Katong People's Complex, a shadowy figure stepped out and opened fire. 2 gunshots rang out. 1 bullet pierced Mona's face, and another tore into her back. The gunman fled immediately through a side exit, disappearing into the city streets before anyone could react. Miraculously, Mona Ko survived, but the second bullet shattered her spine, leaving her permanently paralyzed from the waist down. When asked who might want her dead, the wheelchair-bound Mona could only sob, "I don't understand why anyone would want to kill me." Theories abounded. Was it a vengeful rival from the nightclub industry seeking to eliminate the competition, or an underworld debt collector sending a message? Yet despite intensive investigations, no suspect was ever identified. The case of the Mamasan shooting remains unsolved. On 22nd May 1985, 18-year-old Winifred Teo left home for her usual evening jog along Old Holland Road. She never came back. The next morning, her naked body was found in thick undergrowth, sexually assaulted, stabbed, and her arms bound with her own t-shirt. Winifred was a bright junior college student from a well-known family. Her death shocked the nation. Police launched a massive manhunt, interviewing known offenders and scouring the area with over 200 officers, but no one was ever charged. Then, 15 years later, a disturbingly similar case occurred. On the 6th of February 2000, 27-year-old Linda Chua went for a jog at Bukit Batok Nature Park. Around 10 a.m., screams echoed from the woods. She was found at the bottom of a ravine, beaten, sexually assaulted, and barely alive. She died a week later in the hospital, never able to speak. Police couldn't ignore the parallels. Same victim profile, same brutal method, same eerie silence. Some feared a serial predator might have been stalking women in Singapore's parks, a theory that still lingers today. Both cases remain unsolved. In July 2008, Tan Lei Lon, a 52-year-old freelance masseuse, was found dead under grotesque circumstances that puzzled investigators. Just 2 days before her body was discovered, Tan was seen stepping out of a taxi with an unidentified man outside her HDB block in Chai Chi. Neighbors grew concerned when a foul stench started emanating from her apartment. On July 19, 2008, police entered her flat and found Tan Lei Lon's half-naked, decomposing corpse on the floor. The autopsy revealed she had been strangled to death, likely on the night she was last seen. A neighbor recalled hearing the sounds of a struggle, furniture thumping, and a woman's screams at about 2 a.m., but no one realized what was happening behind closed doors. In the investigation that followed, authorities interviewed Tan's clients and acquaintances, trying to trace the mystery man from the taxi. They theorized it might have been a crime of passion, perhaps a lover or client who grew jealous or violent. However, without surveillance footage or witnesses who saw the man clearly, leads dried up. To this day, Tan Lei Lon's murderer has not been found. Along the shores of East Coast Park stands a yellow spiral tower, the Amber Beacon. It looks harmless by day, but it's known for one of Singapore's most chilling, unsolved crimes. On the night of the 15th of May 1990, 20-year-old Kelly Tan and her boyfriend James So climbed the tower for a quiet chat. Out of nowhere, 2 men stepped out of the dark and attacked them. James was stabbed in the back. Bleeding but conscious, he fought back and managed to escape, running for help. Kelly wasn't as lucky. She was stabbed in the neck and collapsed on the steps. By the time help arrived, she was gone. James survived and gave a statement. He described the attackers as possibly foreign men in their 20s or 30s. Police launched an intense investigation, roadblocks, park sweeps, and leads pointing to suspects who may have left the country. Some believed it was a robbery gone wrong. Others thought it was random violence, but no one was ever caught, and no clear motive ever emerged. Today, the Amber Beacon Tower still stands, a quiet landmark with a dark memory. Lim Shiow Rong was just 6 years old in 1995, a friendly, lively girl affectionately nicknamed Ah Girl. On the night of 24th June 1995, Xiao Rong was playing at her mother's coffee shop in Toa Payoh when she told her mom that she was going out to meet a friend of Daddy's. It was past 9:30 p.m. and her mother was busy, unable to stop her in time. That was the last time she saw her daughter alive. By the next morning, Xiao Rong's body was discovered in a remote wooded area near Jalan Woodbridge, posed in a semi-sitting position in a drain. The little girl had been raped and strangled. The brutality inflicted on one so innocent stunned Singapore. Police investigations moved quickly. They questioned known sex offenders, distributed a composite sketch of a suspect based on witnesses who saw Xiao Rong with a man, and the case dominated headlines. Yet, despite these efforts, the killer was never caught. Years turned into decades. In 2021, 26 years after the murder, Xiao Rong's mother and relatives made a public appeal through local media, pleading for anyone with information to come forward. The renewed attention prompted the police to confirm that the file is still open and being actively reviewed. But as of today, justice has not been served.